Greetings, Black family, and welcome to On the Wake Up Radio. I am your host, DC Radical One, and you have entered the center. Shout out to our wonderful producer, Cindy Ashby. You can check us out on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, and now iHeartRadio at On the Wake Up Radio. Again, I am your host, DC Radical One, and at you can follow me on Instagram at dc.radical the numeral one. That is at dc.radical the numeral one. And if you are following along on the live stream, you can see that along the bottom. You can follow me at Twitter on DC or at DC underscore radical underscore ONE. That's at DC underscore radical underscore ONE. And for those who would like to donate to the cause, you can donate via Cash App at $ DC radical and numeral one. That's all one word, no punctuation, excuse me. And today's topic, of course, is a topic for the sisters, specifically for the sisters. The Sisters Guide to Dating While Conscious. And this was a requested show topic from a sister that I do not currently see in the building. Let me get some shout outs to some people who are in here. I see we have Sister Tiffany here, and she says she's excited. I'm glad you're excited. It looks like we have Lord Bill here and Joel Saji. So, just give a little background on this topic and why it was selected by somebody else, as I said. But when I thought at first, I really didn't want to do it, being completely honest. But when I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I'll do that. I see we got Sister Vanessa in the building, PP for Hodie, sister. And I give a little preliminary discussion while people ease into the building. Be sure to smash the like button as you ease into the building. Smash the like button. Again, it costs you nothing to ease into the building. But yeah, this topic, the sister asked for this topic, and she actually left me a long DM. And I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? No one, once I thought about it, I was like, almost no one, at least to my knowledge, I can only think of one person that would even do it, would talk about or talk to sisters about how they can go about meeting, vetting, and making themselves appealing to a quote unquote conscious man, and specifically an African centered man. And because it's in the grand scheme of things within the Black community, it is such a small niche community. From the outside looking in, there's really no way, without knowing people within the community, for you to really know how to attract such a man, what they're looking for, if you even qualified. Even though apparently sisters never think about whether or not they qualified, they think they're qualified because they're Black women, and that's not always necessarily the case. And we'll get into that. And so the more I thought about it, the more I see we have our wonderful producer, Cindy Ashby, in the building. Greetings to you. But the more I thought about it, that's it. The more I realized this is definitely a topic that people can, that sisters can benefit from. And our wonderful producer says that she's fashionably late. Of course. Um, so I decided, yeah, let me do it. And the more that I think about it, the more I realize this is needed. And I guess I have a unique perspective because I've been part of multiple organizations, multiple collectives, study various ideologies, and so I think I have a more well-rounded perspective than probably a lot of people would. And so, with that being said, I'm gonna just get into it a little bit. And it's so interesting. I was reading earlier this evening. I was reading a little bit of complementarity, and I was also reading a little bit of the ISIS papers. And I was looking for a quote in the ISIS papers that of course, I couldn't find. I actually been looking for it for over a day. Just looking through the book, really for one specific passage, and somehow it eluded me. But there were some other parts that I saw that I found very interesting. And one of the things that she talks about is that if black men and black women focused on collectively focused on in essence fighting against racism and white supremacy, that is a excellent basis for us to come together. In fact, I got a quote right here. Let me read this real quick. It says, when both the black male and the black female take up the struggle for justice against white supremacy, they are endowed with the strongest possible insurance that they will remain united. They are united in a common effort against injustice, and simultaneously, they express the strongest possible statement about respect and love for themselves as individuals. In doing this, the black male and black female are declaring that they have conferred upon themselves the highest possible value, which is essential if there's to be self and group defense. The new answer to the black male, black female relationship dilemma is for the black male and the black female to make serious conscious struggle against white supremacy their number one priority. Now, when well, first of all, who here that's in the building right now has ever heard that passage from that book or read that passage from that book? And I'll wait for your answers. And what I'm going to say is that we're never, as a collective of black people, and it's not even stressed a lot, I would say, in the quote unquote conscious community, that the basis of our relationships can be indeed fighting against racism, white supremacy. That aspect, and it's so interesting. I'm talking about racism and white supremacy, and suddenly there are all types of sirens that I can hear. Sister said, no, I have to get the book, but it is 100% true. Yes, sister, this is definitely the ISIS Papers by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing is required reading for all, I would say for all black people globally, because racism, white supremacy is global. And she was one of our foremost female scholars, and one of the ones that really broke down and delved into racism, white supremacy more than most of us. So yeah, I definitely recommend that book. But I just found that quote interesting while I was, like I said, looking for another quote. And I think that that's if we make that psychological shift, it would cause a paradigm shift within our people and set us on a course towards liberation. Which is why, of course, it's not talked about. It's not our focus. It's not what we've been taught to believe. And thus we are where we are. And let's see, Lord Bell says the ISIS Papers and the Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman are must read. It's so funny you mentioned that. I haven't read the Black Man's Guide in eons. Like that book was out. I don't know. It seemed like that book has been out ever since I had knowledge. So that's a long time ago. This is last century. But I do remember it being an interesting book. I do remember it causing a lot of controversy at the time. And if it was brought to people's attention again, it would bring more controversy now than then, because we're in a much more feminist era than in. I'm not even. I think she wrote that book sometime in the '80s. I'm not even sure, to be completely honest. But to delve further into the discussion, and I was trying to wait for a few more people to trickle in, but apparently everybody's going to be fashionably late, or everybody decided that it's Saturday night and they're going to do something else, which I can understand that. Lord Bell says the '80s, yes, okay. I mean, it is Saturday night, depending on where you are in the country. You either can or can not go somewhere. You either are or are not wearing a mask, and where you're going may not be open next week. I can't speak for other areas, but they're suddenly in this area they're talking about actually rolling back the the phases or whatever they call it with this whole semi quarantine that we're going through. It's it's this thing has become a headache, a nuisance. But be that as it may, and of course, it's made it much more difficult for anyone that was not already in a relationship. Much more difficult to socialize. You can't even totally see what people look like now. Everyone's walking around with masks and hats and gloves, and it's complete. It's really is crazy, but it is what it is. I have a lot of thoughts on the pandemic, but that's another show completely. But first things first, when we're talking about what sisters need to do as far as finding a brother that is quote unquote conscious, is a sister has to understand that there are different types of consciousness, different um, different ideologies within what is called consciousness, different philosophies, different ways of looking at sisters, and so all these things come into play. And I don't really know how. I guess now a lot of people, because of the internet and social media, a lot of people come into knowledge or become interested via that, and that makes things kind of difficult because you can get a hodgepodge of information, and it can really make it difficult to sift through and to figure out really what resonates with you. I'll say. See, we have 7779311 has entered the building. Greetings to you. And so one of the first things I'll talk about is like some of the different conscious groups, and this will determine kind of the type of men that you will meet depending on which group. And so first and foremost, you'll have the religious nationalists. Having trouble with my tongue today. Um, the sister says, could these levels of consciousness be levels of vibrations? Um, I guess you could say in a way that they all resonate on different frequencies. I would say that they Yeah, I mean, I would say that I would say they kind of all they appeal to different aspects of our psyche, and also depends on where we are. If a person is still within the religious paradigm, then the first thing they're going to gravitate to is the religious paradigm. BB48, the Philly eBay, see people are starting to slowly roll in. Um, and so, as those who have listened to me know, I myself was a religious nationalist. That was that was what appealed to me at the time because of course, as I've stated previously, because of Malcolm X. And so I followed that path for a large part of my life in some aspect of another or another. And so when you deal with the religious nationalists, the good thing about dealing with a religious nationalist, be it a Muslim or a yeah, either Nation of Islam Muslim or Rastafari, Hebrew Israelite, any of those people, the good thing, this is the good thing. One, they're usually part of an organization. Um, Two, you have a book that's supposed to be a guideline for what they can do. And for a woman, that's important. Like sisters don't understand the importance of studying to protect themselves against dudes pretending to be something and trying to run game. So what am I saying? So if a person is supposed to be let's just say, person is supposed to be Rastafari. From my understanding, they actually have a book, that like their own, something sort of like their own Bible type of thing, and that gives them the guidelines and things that they're supposed to do. So if somebody wants to enter in that path or deal with somebody that's following along that path, that allows you to compare their teachings with their actions, and so you can see whether or not those things are comparable, and if they're even trying to do the right thing, or if they're just Rasta in name only. Same with let's say Nation of Islam. They had actually Nation of Islam has a whole boatload of literature that they're supposed to follow, and same for Orthodox Muslim. They have not only the Quran but also the Hadith, which are very extensive. I had that as part of my library, and I mean, it's a lot. It covers a lot of stuff, and I don't think there's too many. There aren't too many people that read that whole thing. But like I said, it allows a sister that's in or interested in someone that's in a um, part of those teachings, part of those organizations. It allows you to compare um, behavior with teaching, and so you can see what people are supposed to be doing. And they normally built on a structure that's an organizational structure that's where a hierarchy, and they're usually people that members of these communities um, answer to, and so that makes it a little easier for you to be able to deal with certain situations. The drawbacks, of course, are these all of these organizations and teachings are very conservative. So if you're a sister that's kind of new age, kind of feministy, kind of as they say, girl powery, it may not be the area or the place for you. That may not be a place where you can fit in. So, but that's one aspect. Then another aspect is something that I've seen recently, and I'm going to call them the what I call the RBG dudes. RBG dudes are basically they're basically black nationalists who, but they don't really have a standard code of conduct, and so they're bound by a philosophy, but don't necessarily have a code of conduct. And the thing about that is, over the years, black nationalism has been, um, people have brought the street to black nationalism, if you understand what I'm saying. And so that's why I call them RBG dudes, because it's really like a lot of times it's dudes. They get knowledge. They come off the block. They get knowledge. Maybe they might be incarcerated. They get knowledge, and they bring that mentality to this philosophy, and it's been kind of melded together. The bad part about that is, there is a lack of, like I said, a lack of code of conduct, a lack of standard behavior, and so um, you have a lot of issues there. And there's also not a strong organization amongst them that I'm aware of. And so that's one of those things that you run into a lot of these brothers, to be honest. And there is somebody that y'all, if I call his name, y'all would know. And he's kind of like the person that popularized this and made it, um, kind of swayed that philosophy in that direction. I don't see him much in the public eye anymore. So yeah, I won't bother naming names because yeah, it is what it is. Um, then next you'll have the Pan Africanists, who are, um, they're a little bit different from the RBG dudes, or the black nationalists, in that they tend to be a little older. They tend to be, no, that's not the person I was thinking of, Sister Vanessa. They tend to be a little older. They tend to be a little more academic, and the Pan Africanist thing has been kind of, well, not kind of, it's been infiltrated, where it was strong, but now they have allowed, um, homosexuals to come in their ranks, and you know defend, so at times defending homosexuals, um definitely not holding the line against them. um Sister said, we know who. I'm laughing, y'all know why I'm laughing. um and so modern pan-africanism is not as strong as it was. And it's weird, like modern pan-africanism has been kind of melded with socialism. And so if you have a group like that, you might see some integrationist tendencies there. And you might go to one of the events, and some Yoruga will pop up, and you'll be looking around trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah, so there are some Pan Africanist groups like that shall not be named, because yeah. I just put it like this: if you're here listening to me, then if you go to somebody's event and Yoruga's there, you already know what time it is. Unless it's a venue they're renting and Yoruga actually works there or something, mopping floors or something. But other than that, yeah, you don't really want that. Last but not least are the African nationalists. These would be people like myself, Straight Black Pride, the Barudis, Ashra Kwesi, those type of people. Um, we try to have a code of conduct. Baba Barudi has done a unbelievable job in giving tools um, African for African morals. That's what I'm trying to say. Sister said she would freak out if Yoruga walked in. Yeah, Baba Rudy has given us tools for African morals. Because what happens sometimes is, because this is what happened to me for a while. When you come from a religious paradigm, regardless of what the religious paradigm is, the religious paradigm, um, that's where you get your moral foundation from, right? So your sense of what is right and wrong comes from the religious paradigm. When you remove the religious paradigm, then suddenly your people's moral foundation is shaken. And you still have an idea of what is right and wrong, but you don't have a context to really put it in. And so, what Baba Baruti has done with his books, especially Iwa, A Warrior's Character, Asafo, and Complementarity, he gives us a those of us that left the religious paradigm. He gave us a moral foundation within the African context, if you understand what I'm saying. And so, instead of our morals being colored by religious um, books and institutions and scholarship, is now colored by African cultural concepts, if you will. So, I am an African nationalist. I'm not a Pan Africanist. And of course, an African nationalist primary goal and function is that of nation building. And of course, the foundation of a nation is the family. And so it is the duty of those who are African nationalists to at least attempt to find a complement and to have to be married and to build a family and to pass on the that which they have learned and to raise their children up as best they can to be better Africans and to continue the tradition of being better Africans. Now, as we know, and I read that quote from Dr. Welsing earlier, the hardest thing in the world, in my opinion, is for two black people, especially here in the West, where we're surrounded by Yoruba, for two black people to come together to make a commitment that they're going to work together, produce children, and fight racism, white supremacy as long as they live, and to pass on that tradition to their children. And then hopefully their children will pass it on, and so forth and so on. To me, that's the hardest thing in the world to do in today's environment. Why is that the hardest thing in the world to do in today's environment? Because one, they're trying to push the men to be women and the women to be men, right? So now we have arguments about gender roles and all these other things that we didn't really argue about before. We have men that won't even wear pants above their backsides. We have women who have psychologically bought into being masculinized, and I can never get that word right. Y'all understand what I'm saying? Without even understanding what's taking place. And another thing that has happened is that they've given the illusion of they're giving people an opportunity to opt out of being black in essence. What am I saying? What I'm saying is that before there was no it was extremely rare for a black woman to be able to marry a white man. It was rare, but not as rare for a black man to marry a white woman. Now, when you look on the TV and everything like that, all you see is the push of black people with non-black people. Like, I'll say 95% of the commercials, if they feature black people, they don't feature black people as a couple. You'll see a black man and a white woman, or some woman you can't really identify her race, and some curly haired children, or you'll see some real melanated sister with some cornball looking European dude and some funny looking children. Or you might see two dudes together in some of these commercials. They'll flash that real quick. Sometimes two women, although they don't show as much black women with that on the commercials. that I've seen, but I'm sure it's there. And you see everything except most times a black man and a black woman who both look black. We can identify them as being black and having black children and living the happy life as they buy the car or the whatever product they're trying to sell us. And so just from that psychological attack that happens every day for people that um watch television, sometimes even here on something like YouTube, the commercial will pop up before watching the video, and you'll see all types of things. So that lets us know that without question, it's the number one. Okay, well these two attacks go hand in hand. That the interracial and the homosexuality are the two focus attacks that they had on us, and the new attack on the black family, because the attack on the black family started before. That started way back in ancient Kemet. And if you ever read Destruction of Black Civilization, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't read Destruction of Black Civilization, add that to your list of um, books that you need to read. Now, another aspect of, let's see, they have a Smirnoff commercial out now with nothing but gays and transgenders. Laverne Cox is in it too. Oh man, wow! I'm so glad I haven't seen that. Yeah, I'm almost. Yeah, it makes my stomach hurt just thinking about that. Yeah, but I'm not surprised. I just, yeah. Anyway, so wow. Anyway, let me get back to this. So, another aspect that I wanted to talk about, and I delve into it a little bit for sisters, is understanding what I call organized consciousness versus internet consciousness. What am I saying? Organized consciousness is the person is part of a group. The group physically meets. You can actually go and meet these people. Maybe not in your city, but in a city, and they're actively doing things in advancement of whatever their ideology or philosophy is, right? Versus internet consciousness. We know what internet consciousness is. Social media consciousness, making memes and you know talking back and forth, communicating and spreading information and things like that. The thing about the internet consciousness is that you don't have to live it, really. You know, you really don't have to live it. There's really no, again, get back to the old code of conduct thing. Excuse me. You don't have to, as we used to say back in the day, you don't have to show and prove on that. We're just taking your word that that's what you're doing. Although some people, they even within that they show that they're not serious. I saw a brother today. He had a post. I guess this is somebody that it was somebody that tried to follow him on Instagram, and the dude, I guess supposed to be some type of black. Yeah, he said he was black power, whatever the case was. But of course, you already know what I'm about to say. He had a picture of himself and a Yorugu female he hugged up with and kissing, and then the brother brother put up another post where the guy was trying to defend it and trying to say that she wasn't a European and talking about her grandfather was black or something. Anyway, it was just so ridiculous to me. I mean, whatever that female was, she didn't look anything that I saw. I didn't see any type of blackness whatsoever. I mean, she wasn't even mixed. This was Yorugu. But that's the type of things that you'll see at times with internet consciousness, because it's much harder to try to go into an institution or organization and bring some Europeans in to what are trying to be black spaces. Not that I haven't seen it before. I'm trying to see who's in here. Okay, this is a true story, right? I've seen this. So I went to a it was a group here. They had a black, yeah, there's a black love event. I can't remember the title, but what's funny is that they inspired me to actually do our singles mixes and stuff based on having attended a couple of these events. Excuse me. So anyway, it was a black love event. There were black couples there. There were black singles there, looking for other people. They had poetry and music, and had the smooth lighting and the I think they had somebody was selling some alcohol and had vendors and all that type of stuff, right? And we're discussing issues between black men and black women. So that's the thing. Try to build some bridges, if you will, right? So me and another brother, we attended, to support because we knew the organizers, and also, you know, it's gonna be some sisters there. We're black men, so we're just gonna see what's going on. I'm trying to think. Actually, I don't think my brother. Actually, I don't think he was single at the time. But be that as it may, yeah, he was meeting. Yeah, he was meeting a sister there. That's what it was. But so we are about to go into the venue, and we see this dude pull up. You see this brother pull up, and he's with a European female in his car, right? So we stop and look, and I'm like, man, you think it's any? I was like, there ain't no way that dude coming in here, right? My brother's like, man, I guarantee you he's coming in here. And I just shook my head. I was like, nah, he ain't that bold. So we went in, we talked to the people, went, grabbed a seat and everything like that. And sure enough, a few minutes later, this this dude, no, actually the female, that's what it was. The European female walks in, right? Walks all the way across the room to the other side of the room from where the door is. And, just makes herself comfortable. Like she's so far away, I couldn't even see her. And so me and my brother looked at each other, and we wanted to see who was going to check her. And so we saw the sisters kind of like talking to each other. So we were going to it wasn't our event, but we wanted to see. A sister said, I would have walked out. I have to deal with Yaruga on my job, and I'm not going to deal with them on my social circle. Yeah, I understand. But so let me finish the story though before you walk out. So the person, it turns out that the dude was he was a poet. He was supposed to be a performer. So the person that invited him, she went and just informed him that it was a black love event, and you know what he's doing is not black love, and so they left. But it just goes to show that the difference between an organization and internet consciousness. He, in essence, brought his internet consciousness to an organizational event. And although it took a minute, and we were observing just to see what would happen, because in a we were kind of in a semi alliance with this group, so we wanted to see. But yeah, one of the sisters in the organization, she just kindly told them what it was, and they rolled out, and we continued on and had a good time. Um, yeah, I spoke it. Yeah, that, when they were asking things and that they were asking questions and whatever, and I actually spoke at that a little impromptu speech, if you will, at that event. I forgot about that part, and somebody filmed it, which is hilarious. Somebody I didn't know at the time, and then sisters were coming up and asking me questions and all that, and so yeah, it was interesting. Um, that was an interesting event. I had kind of I don't know if when you talk about something, you start remembering all the details. But yeah, that shows the difference between those two incidents. Show the difference between organized and internet consciousness. Philly eBay, I believe, is clapping for Urugu being removed from the premises. Yeah, and if you've ever come to a SBPM event, you know that we do have brothers on post who, if needed, can show people where the exit is if they have become disoriented and entered into the wrong venue. Um, so that's something that we take care of, as well as we have a policy of escorting sisters to their vehicles at night just because of things that go on. Um, and Philly E Babe, she's been to at least one of our events, and she's not local, so shout out to her for that. And so I'm going to talk about now just some of the things that, especially an African centered man, would want very quickly. And oh, sister says, I appreciate that. Oh, we appreciate you. Um, First and foremost, every almost every black man. This is kind of like a universal black man complaint that I'm about to say. So if you haven't heard it before, then either you haven't been around a lot of brothers, or you're already on the right track and this doesn't apply to you. Brothers in general, this is black men in general, want their women feminine, not feminist. I'm going to say it again. Black men in general. So it applies even more to the type of men that we're talking about. Want their women feminine, not feminist. What am I saying? Remember last week we were talking about cooperation? That cooperation, not being confrontational with the person that's supposed to be, again, Dr. Welsing, supposed to be working together to fight racism, white supremacy. How can we work together to fight racism and white supremacy? If you're confrontational with me, but you're docile and cooperative with the European, can be done. Feminism, of course, as we understand, is a European concept, just as misogyny is a European concept. From my study, feminism is a reaction to misogyny. So you have two European concepts that mirror each other. Neither one of them, come from our tradition. Sisters now have come to believe, just because of the indoctrination, that being feminine means that they have to be weak. And that's not the case. In our tradition, we have a black woman warrior tradition, right? But that black woman warrior tradition was only utilized at times where the black men were not sufficient enough to withstand the attack. And so the sisters join in. But again, that tradition of woman warriorhood is expressed in facing the opposition, not the compliment. You see what I'm saying? And so what the European has done is they have taken that, understanding it, turned it around. So instead of sisters being like sisters in the Panthers were, like Afeni Shakur and some of the other sisters, standing against the European, standing against the oppressor, being like Dr. Wells and breaking down race and white supremacy, being like Marimba Ani with her book Urugu. Instead of that, now the European has turned the black woman back around, and all of the pain and suffering and hurt that has been inflicted by way of racism and white supremacy, she projects that on the black man who's supposed to be her complement. And so now we have conflict amongst each other as opposed to conflict with the enemy. So again, we want our women feminine, not feminist. Is that something that's clear to everyone? I'll wait for you all to answer before I go on to the next thing. I think that should be clear between the end of last week's show and this show. I think that's something we should comprehend. I know it's hard for sisters sometimes. I know we've heaped a multitude of disrespect on you, especially via the music. You know, it's been, I mean, Negroes have been calling our women B's and H's in music for at least, more than 30 years, excuse me, more than 30 years. So I understand that is not helping anything. I understand the music videos, I understand all the media, I understand all that. But understand that the type of men that we are talking about, that if you're here on this, if you're listening live or you listen in the future, the type of man that you're interested in, understand that he understands all that and does not advocate that. And if he does advocate that, then you need to find another conscious man who's on, as y'all would say, some of the younger people would say, vibrating on a higher frequency, if you will. Okay, so that's that. Second thing, aid and support. Black man wants aid and support. Here's something that has not taken place in the black community in a while. What sister here was ever taught to support a black man by her mother or her aunts or things like that? If you have, let me know. Because I'm not a black woman, I can only look at the results and then make the conclusion this is something that's not taking place. And what I hear all right, sisters will complain, right? We're not being protected by brothers. We the black women are most disrespected. All these things. There's a modicum of truth in those statements. The sister says I've seen my mother do it. Okay. So you learned. So your mother didn't teach you directly, but you saw her. You learned by watching her. Okay. But like I was saying, sisters talk about not being protected and things like that. My thing has always been, even before this discussion came out, my thing has always been, are you supporting the type of men that would take on the responsibility that you want to put on them? What am I saying? Men, Sister Philly E Babe said, by action, not necessarily told. Okay. Here, here's something that I don't think sisters really understand. Because if they really understood, then mate selection would go completely different. Sisters incentivize behaviors of men based on the men that they choose. And I'm going to give an example, right? So when I was a teenager, um, the crack epidemic started to, well, I guess it started before I was a teenager, but anyway, I noticed it as a teenager and it started to sweep across the country, right? If you were around, dudes noticed that dudes that used to be cornballs, right? That's the word used sometimes, would suddenly get um, the most attractive women based on their accumulation of assets through illicit activity. Now, what signal does that send to the younger men? I mean, it's very clear. The signal it sends to the younger men is that as long as you can accumulate assets, regardless of how you do it, you'll have access to the higher level women. Now, if the higher level women had simply said, I'm not going to lay up with any dope dealer, brother, you destroying your own community, yada, yada, those types of things, then the appeal of that lifestyle decreases. Because one thing sisters don't understand, and I think Napoleon Hill, is it Napoleon Hill, said it in Think and Grow Rich. He basically said that men accumulate assets, and I'm paraphrasing, accumulate assets in order to uh, appease women or to get it, or and to get a better level woman. And then, this is just actual fact. That's how it is. Men are motivated by women. Wars have been started over women. Civilizations have been conquered over women. So, female mate selection can change the destiny of a people. Right? Now, the thing is, of course, it starts with the females at the top, the ones who are deemed the most physically attractive. And of course, within each culture and even within subcultures within a culture, that can be a different, that as aesthetic can be different. Oh, no, it is different. Not can be, it is different. But with that being said, that aspect of female mate selection can really change the perceptions of a man of what is and isn't quote unquote cool and what they will and won't do. I mean, it's just natural. Any brother who, is interested in women, every brother has a type. Every brother has, like I was talking about last week, their icon. And you can take a brother's for the hardest dude, the strongest dude, the whatever, and you bring what represents the icon to him in the building and watch him change his whole personality. That's a power that women have of both femininity and sensuality that women have not been taught to use in a progressive, productive manner. Sisters have been taught to use it, especially in the last 20 years or so, in a destructive manner, not only to the community but to themselves. And so that is something that I just wanted sisters to really understand. So the aid and support aspect of it is that the type of men that sisters support will determine the type of men that become quote unquote cool, which will then determine the actions of the men who come behind them and also the men of that generation. Okay, so here's an example. Is everybody with me? Black Panther Party, perfect example of this, right? Panthers come out as originally six brothers. They come out, black jackets, berets. I think they used to rock blue shirts, shades, guns. They have a certain mystique. They do the Denzel Dow case comes up. They end up going to Sacramento, and they become nationally famous at that time. You know, then you start getting a lot of sisters to come in, right? And I don't know the story of who decided it, or how it went, or whatever. But some type of way it was decided that Panther sisters would only deal with Panther brothers. Now, what was the effect of that? Well, number one, Panthers had a lot of sisters that were attractive. The effect was that when brothers knew they couldn't get with a sister because she was a Panther and would only accept a Panther, then all of a sudden he's going down to the Panther office to see how he can sign up, changing the behavior of the community, making revolutionaries the what people would say today the alpha males of the black community. And so then you have a young generation that become revolutionary. So then if they can become Panthers, then they join some other organization, Black Liberation Army, Republic of New Africa, so forth and so on. And so suddenly that becomes, once the women decide that those men are the desirable men, men change their behavior to become more like those men that the women have deemed are desirable. And then you end up having is in essence a revolutionary generation. So how do I know that that was important and that I'm right about it? I know it because if you look at Hollywood, what did Hollywood do in response to that? If you look now, remember, Panther started in October, I believe, '66. By the early '70s, you had the black exploitation film, and who in the black exploitation film was the became the representation of manhood. It wasn't the Panthers, it wasn't the revolutionaries. It was the pimps and the drug dealers. The Superflies, the Max, and all those movies. And they just kept making them for the rest of the decade. So suddenly the aesthetic of what was strong black manhood and what was a desirable male was altered via the media. So suddenly brothers want to wear platform shoes and flowery shirts and big floppy hats and whatnot, and process their hair. And so then sisters start looking for that type of person, and then that person becomes the desirable male, and suddenly your revolution gets stomped out because the generation that would have came behind it, they have a different idea of what is manhood. So that's why the aid and support of the sisters and who they choose to support as a collective is important. Every black man wants aid and support. Every black man would like the comfort of coming home to a sister that understands. Sister said media we didn't control. Indeed. We didn't control it, but it helped control us. Um, I was saying every black man would like they come home, especially every quote unquote conscious brother would like to come home to a sister that understands that even in his job, vocation, how he makes his money, however he does that, he's fighting racism, white supremacy in that. Right? That in itself will lessen conflict because we understand what we're dealing with here. That's always important to keep in mind because there's going to be times when you're in a relationship where things aren't going to always go well. There's going to be bad days. Might be bad weeks. As far as I'm concerned, 2020 has been a bad year. I just don't, I don't talk about it because I'm doing better than a lot of people. But a man, knowing that a woman has his back, even in a situation where he's not at his best, motivates him to be his best. Aid and support. But what happens nowadays is that because sisters have been taught to not to depend on a man and to go out and get theirs and get their the education and the degrees and accomplishments and things like that, which is there's nothing wrong with that because we're all adults, and if you're not married, you have to survive. But what happens is that sisters fall out of, how can I put it? They lose their ability. They're not used to aiding and supporting unless they're in a job where they do it, and then you're used to aiding and supporting your Rugu. Like how many sisters, for example, just as an example, how many sisters are personal assistants of a black man that's successful? I mean, I don't know. I know back in the day, Bob Johnson used to have. I went to BET and there's a boatload of sisters all over the place. I don't know how many other businesses and organizations we have like that. So it's not something that's part of modern. And to me, outside looking in, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. It's not a part of black female culture. Within SBPM, it is. The sisters, they help us out a lot. I don't think I got any of the sisters in here tonight. And we appreciate it. I mean, if you be honest, the thing wouldn't be functional without them. Brother says some women look down on men without degrees, even though there are a lot of brothers with trades and I believe, and mad skills. That we'll get to that. We will get to that. And I don't know if the sister's still in here because she asked me a question. Sister Poetry, if you're still in here, shout yourself out real quick. But she said, do black women submit more or easier to a man of status? And that was a question she asked earlier, saying that brothers of status don't feel like that they get the support and love from black women. And that's a little bit different question, but I told her I would address it. Um, Hearing from a lot of brothers who, and when we're talking about high status in this context, we're talking about brothers that make a lot of money. We're talking about the six figure and up crew, which I think if you make six figures in the United States of America, you that puts you in approximately the top 10% of earners. And the sister was saying that there is a belief amongst these brothers that sisters don't give them the respect and credit that BB Fahodier, Sister Mello. I don't think I tagged you when I posted. Apologize for that. Um so yeah, no, the question about do in essence non-black women, I guess, submit or support, whatever you want to say, these brothers on this level, the brothers who are the high income earners, the top 10% economically. Um, I would say this: sisters are not taught to look for these type of brothers when they're young. I don't think, right? And I give an example. Um, well, no, I won't give an example. Let me delve into it a little more first, and then I back I'll come back around. European females are extremely aggressive when it comes to latching on to a black man that they think will be successful. At some point, and I do not know when or how, a signal was given to European females at some point in the last 20 years that it was okay to openly go after these type of men. Now, one of the things that happens is that these type of brothers many times come from an environment where they aren't they haven't been able to navigate the social scene of attending, of accomplishment, but maintaining in essence that quote unquote street edge. If y'all understand what I'm saying. So I remember when I was in I was in high school, and a teacher was like, she's like, you're doing very well. And I like the fact that you're still able to socialize with your friends and everything, but still accomplish your work and do what you need to do. I took that to I took that to mean that she's in essence saying that I'm able to navigate both worlds. Because from her eyesight, because of course a European female, from her eyesight, just me socializing with those people, they were in essence, me hanging with my people could be detrimental to my academic accomplishment. That's really what she was saying, right? And so they make it like as a young male, you have to make a choice between maintaining, in essence, like maintaining your culture while achieving. So what happens is a lot of times, and it's funny because it's so funny after you asked me the question, um, I was looking at a YouTube video and a brother addressed it and he kind of like verified what I thought. I said, okay. So a lot of times these brothers will come from an environment where they aren't used to interacting and dealing with black women a certain way. Like there's a certain way that black women socialize or black people socialize, and there's a certain way that Europeans socialize. And if you've ever gone to a quote unquote party with Europeans as opposed to a party with black people, or a better example, gentrification is a perfect example. All right, I'm gonna give y'all an example. Right, give y'all an example around here. Black people have clubs, white people have bars, right? Anybody that's in a city where they've been to both sides of town, you know what I'm saying. Black people have clubs, white people have bars. So if you're used to socializing with Europeans, and sister said, and pubs, right? And you go and see their socialization bent is formed around a lot of talking and drinking, and occasionally eating, but mostly talking and drinking. You know, you hang out with black people, your music's pumping, we dancing, we grooving. You know what I'm saying? Y'all know how it is. I don't have to go into it. Two different scenes, and you would need two different skill sets to navigate those social scenes. So if you come up in one of those social scenes and you come up with that mentality, sisters are not going to gravitate towards you because you've been socialized in a different way, right? So then what happens? The brother feels rejected, so then he goes to gravitate to that social scene even more, and he fits in with that, and then he feels like, oh, I'm getting more support from these women. But again, there's also the aspect of what I said before, that now European females are taught to seek out these brothers, whether it's the athletes or the brothers who are strong in academics. We see the athletes because they're public. We don't see the engineers and the lawyers. They don't even, you know what I'm saying? We don't see them. By the time we see them, they with some white woman. We like, what happened? Sister says, speaking of pubs, I heard that's a thing in the dating community where I live. Any other women have that issue? Okay, she addressed that to the sister, so I'll let y'all deal with that. And so I would say, and then there's one other aspect, because this is a point I wanted to make and I almost missed it. If you're not open to attention and validation from people outside of your community, then it doesn't really matter what happens as far as like the attention they give you, things like that, or the support, or whatever the case may be. That's the part of it that people don't understand. Now, I understand more than most. I won't get into it. European females are very vindictive. European females are very vindictive. If you get in a situation, a professional situation with a European female, and you turn down a European female, you need to start working on your resume. There's gonna be a problem. But nobody ever talks about that aspect, or that mentality amongst European females. They don't, brothers always talk about, oh, I get support from them. Yeah, turn one of them down, see how that works. But again, for those brothers in those situations, if you're not open to, if you're not looking for that validation from them, if you're not open to being seduced by them, then you'll see how they really are, and you won't think the same way that you thought before. So I hope that answered your question, sister. Brothers have to, and I understand sometimes it's difficult, but brothers have to understand the game that's being run on them by these non-black women. And as much as there are especially if you 35 and under, there are a lot of sisters that can be problematic. But again, another thing is what brothers do. They'll be attracted to women who are not a good psychological match, have some type of bad interaction with those women, and then start looking outside the community instead of looking at why are you even attracted to that woman. I mean, sometimes as a man, sometimes we know why you're attracted to that woman. You know, I'm not mad at you for being attracted to her, but you trying to be an upscale brother, you're looking to be professional, you have to fit within the corporate world. After that fourth tattoo, you know that that's not the woman for you. And I'm not trying to shame anybody that has tattoos, but that corporate world's it's a different animal. So I hope, uh, Sister Poetry, I answered that and addressed that. If that answer is not sufficient, let me know, um, and I'll try to get into it a little deeper. But I think that pretty much covered it. Um, the next thing that really all brothers, but conscious brothers are looking for, the first teacher. What am I saying? Dr. Wilson talked about it. She said the black woman is the first teacher. And pardon me for a second. And y'all know occasionally my voice decides to take a vacation in the middle of a stream. So trying to head that off at the pass. But it's important, if you're going to deal with a brother that's conscious, if you're going to deal with a brother that's conscious, it's important for you to study whatever his ideology is, because he's looking at you, and I'm talking about the brothers who are serious and who are marriage minded. These are the people we're talking about. Even when we're talking about the high value men, we're talking about the high value men who are marriage minded. And the sister said, "Thank you. We definitely need a roundtable discussion on it, though." Um, yeah, I mean, for those brothers that fit within that economic paradigm, unfortunately, I don't fit within that economic paradigm. But if I do, then I'll join the panel. Um, but even corporate brothers, they're looking for their the values that they believe in. They're looking for their woman to transmit those values to their children. So whether it's the corporate brother or the 5%er or the RBG or the Pan Africanist or the Hebrew Israelite or the African nationalist, they want you, sister's black woman, because it's your job, because you're the first teacher, to pass on the ideology and philosophy that man has embraced. I don't think anybody is surprised by that, but sometimes I think sisters have to be reminded. And within that, not only do you have to be the first teacher, but you're also, in essence, his representative. And this is within the corporate world or within the quote unquote conscious community. A man's woman is his representative. The esteem of a man will go up or down based on his woman. Y'all hear what I'm saying? That's how important mate selection is. In fact, a brother that's a leader can get more esteem from his followership just by the type of woman that he has, that's his wife, that is the representative of him, because then she becomes the representative in a way of the entire movement. So that's how important it is for you as a sister. If you're going to deal with a brother, and I'm going to talk about the different types of brothers within these organizations, you're the representative of him. So I want y'all to understand how serious this is when you're talking about you want to deal with, you want your conscious brother, you want a strong black alpha male or strong African warrior or a strong FOI brother, or you want a brother to be God body, or all these things, that these different names for the strongest brother within these different ideologies. What part of that? What This is your job description. You didn't gave him his job description. This is your job description. You're representing him. If I, as somebody that used to be as a former 5%er, I can look at a sister and tell how strong the brother is that she with, how strong the God is. And we all, yeah, the God must be on point because his queen on point. Right? That's literally how other men think. And it goes for, it doesn't even matter the ideology. It's the same everywhere. If you go somewhere and you see a sister with me and she's dressed in African garb and looking good, respectful, classy, you hear her speak, she's intelligent, you like, the way you think of me goes up. Like, man, that brother must be powerful because that his queen, man, she's on point. The sister said, I wish I heard Dr. Collis' words years ago in picking a brother. Which words were those, sister? Dr. Collis said a lot of things. And so I don't think sisters think about that. And like I said, this is almost universal, really, in a way, amongst men and how women represent men. And I don't think sisters realize that that's part of the job description. Regardless of what we think about Martin Luther King, we think about the classiness of Coretta. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about her. I have no idea anything about how her personality, anything was, but I never heard anybody say anything bad about her. She was a better representation in a very real way. She was a better representation of him than he was of her. But it takes a special type of woman to deal with that level of man. But we're gonna get into that a little bit further. Next, complementarity over confrontation. Did y'all hear me? Complementarity over confrontation. One of the reasons that our relationships don't work because too much confrontation, not enough complementarity. Is very We haven't been taught as black people to seek someone that complements us and to make us better on both ends. Men aren't really taught it as a whole. Women definitely aren't taught it as a whole. Because sisters aren't taught to be within their femininity, so you definitely aren't taught to find somebody that's complementary. Because you're not within your proper polarity. Therefore, what you're going to attract is going to be not going to be within his proper polarity. And then you're going to be looking around saying, he's not man enough after y'all been together for a while. But you've been taking on, or you came into it with a certain masculine vibe. And the thing about it is that what sisters don't realize is that a brother that's strong within his masculinity, you're gonna repel him. I mean, I'll be completely honest, I met some beautiful sisters that once they start talking and you start reading their energy and just the way that they act, it's just like, oh wow, yeah, we can't even be quote unquote friends. I don't you can't exist in my world talking like that, acting like that. You can't I can the other sisters in the community won't accept you. They're like, yo, who is she? Get her out of here. Because they're bringing that masculine confrontational energy to black men. And a lot of sisters, they're just not used to cooperating with black men, let alone being complimentary. And the next thing I had was something, but I talked about this last week already, so I don't really want to go deep into it. Cooperation versus submission. I talked about that last week. For me personally, I need cooperation. Number one, I mean, first of all, sisters hate the word submission with a passion. One of the quickest ways to start a fight, because the reality of the situation is, and sisters won't say it, but here's the reality. I know what it is. Sisters don't think black men are worthy of submitting to because they don't feel we've done our job in confronting racism and white supremacy. And in the back of your minds, that's what it is. That's what it is. But no sister wants to say it. Some sisters are not aware of it, but that's what it is. We didn't have these conflicts when the Panthers was putting in work, and Black Liberation Army and those brothers. Robert F. Williams. I mean, Robert F. Williams' whole mission started with sisters asking him, "What you gonna do now, Rob?" Rob was former military, so he's like, "All right, I'll utilize my skills." He, had no more issues. But cooperation, I'm just going for that. Can you be cooperative without disrupting everything because you're right? Because some sisters are right all the time, which means we can't never get nothing accomplished if you're right all the time. Because that means whenever I disagree with you, I'm wrong, which means that's a conflict. Nobody's right all the time. But some sisters have that mentality. At least their mentality is they're right all the time when discussing things with black men. So, sister says also submission means different things to different peoples. So, when one meets someone, they would need to clarify what the word means to them. Yeah, that's true. But sisters bristle at just the concept. But can you be cooperative? I mean, it sounds basic and easy, but like if a basic example, hey, I'm going to be working late. I have to finish this project, right? Can you leave the dinner in the oven so it's at least warm when I get home? Cooperation. I mean, I've heard women talk like that. That's a problem. And I'm just like, but you want the man to make all this money, but he can't get no cooperation so that his meal is still warm when he gets home after working 12, 14 hours. Because most brothers are high value brothers. They're working. You ain't getting the money for free. You have your own business. You working crazy hours. You're a lawyer. I've known some lawyers. I mean, I'm talking crazy hours. I mean, they make money, but working crazy hours. coming in at who knows when and leaving in the middle of the night. You know, yo, you still here? Yeah. His sister said I would ask him to call me when he's on the way home so I can warm it up and he can eat when he gets here. Yeah. I mean, I had, I've had some, had some employment that had me working ridiculous hours. His sister said, I just had a convo with my sister whose son is dating a non-black girl, and she literally is the reason he's dating outside his race. She says black men are a mess. Oh, yeah, well, but as I was saying, I've had employment where I've worked crazy hours, and you know, I had sisters stay up, wait for me, and I'm getting off like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, and they get up, hey, some food in there, whatever. I've had that. You know, and it's funny. You know, there's this discussion that's been going on amongst men about the lack of cooperation and women choosing certain men and so forth, so on. And what's weird is that as a man, sometimes you don't see it because you're not experiencing it. So I mean, I've had times in my life where I was treated very well by women. I've had women, uh, I had women at my job bring me meals. Um, I got a lot of cooperation in my day. I'll put it like that. When I was uh, when I was focused on um, self improvement, it benefited me dealing with women. And then that's another thing I would say to brothers: don't just focus on your economic improvement, but you know, work on your style, work on your physique. I mean, work on your confidence. Some brothers don't get, they have trouble with women because they don't have confidence. You work on all those things, you can attract sisters. I'm sorry. If you have status, you have money, and you have worked on your physique, yeah, it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard to avoid black women. Hard. Unless you live in Nebraska or something. But yeah, but that cooperation versus submission thing. Um, and then here's another thing. And I think this is the last thing because I did deal with being a representative. How much does your baggage weigh? Everybody remember that song "Bag Lady" by Erica Badu, and we got JJ. Welcome, JJ. I haven't seen you comment. My last situation, I would work 14 hours every day, and she would get upset because she was cooking every day. It was to the point where had to make my own meal after work. Wow. Yeah, that's time. That's a situation. That's not a complimentary relationship. That's a If you working 14 hours and you can't get no cooperation, it's just time to pack your bags or pack her bags, depending on what the living situation is. It's just no need you putting in that type of work. There's no need to take that type of disrespect where it's a conflict because I yeah, it's time to roll out. But anyway, back to this. How much does your baggage weigh? Erica Badu made the song "Bag Lady." One thing that I hear people talk about, and so funny, there's a YouTuber who talks to women, and so I know this is true because I've heard sisters say it. Sisters want brothers to disregard their baggage and take them as they are, while at the same time aiming for the highest level man. Right? Think about what I'm saying. So you have a sister, and we understand that, we if you listen to me long enough, I've talked about all the things that sisters go through. So sisters are going to have baggage. We all have been damaged by being Africans in a racist society. We've all been damaged. Everybody. But what I'm saying is that there's a Christian concept that it's not a lot of Christian concepts I believe in or I take from, but there's a Christian concept of being equally yoked. Yeah, Joe Bag Lady. Um, the Christian concept of being equally yoked, that it's one of the few Christian concepts that I believe in. I look at it as both having a similar ideology, having similar goals, and also equally yoked in things like, if you're, let's say your sister, you have two children from two previous relationships, and then you want the brother who's the leader of the organization that doesn't have children to be your man. Is that fair to him? Now he's the leader of the organization. He got to take care of all the people in the organization, deal with all the people that support the organization, represent all the people in the organization, and then you want him to come and rescue you and your two children by some man that's not even part of the community. This is a bag lady, and I'm just using that as an example. You're not equally yoked in that. Now, if that brother, if he had two children or whatever, and y'all trying to do the blended family thing, that's a different dynamic. Or he's a Hebrew or Muslim, and you want to be his second wife, then that's a whole different thing. But I mean, you just see sisters that have this mentality of take me as I am, and what they're looking at is somebody to rescue them, but they're not looking to add on anything to the man. And that's something we see a lot just in the black community in general, but you see it in the community as well. And that's something that, when I do my brother's show, I'll get into further with the brothers on things to look out for. And so, yeah, there will be a brother show um, to go along with this. So it was one other thing I wanted to get to. I have my notes here. See if I actually wrote it down, because I was thinking about so many different things. Um, Archetypes, personality archetypes within the movement. So, sisters, you want to check this out, because this is something that once I say it, if you go to events and you interact with different brothers, you'll be able to see it after I say it. But nobody else, I think, it really broke it down like this. So if y'all ready, let me know. Y'all ready? All right. These are like the different types of brothers you'll see within conscious organizations and groups and the community in general. First and foremost, foot soldiers. Foot soldiers are brothers who are a part of the organization. They do the dirty work. They do the You'll see them doing security. You'll see them whatever needs to be done. That's what they'll do. And you won't. They're not the people that are in the spotlight, but these brothers are normally solid, dependable, responsible because that organization either that organization has disciplined them or they had that discipline within themselves. And when they come into the organization, it helps propel that organization forward. So these are just solid men. Like if you're a sister, you like a man that you know where he's gonna be, what he's gonna be doing. You know that he's solid. He has a strong moral foundation. That whatever he's a part of, that's what he believes in, and that's him. Foot soldier brothers. Be honest, we need more foot soldier brothers in organizations than we have. When I was young, I was a foot soldier. Sold newspapers, did security. They said show up here for physical training. I showed up there for physical training. Show up here to help secure so on. So I did whatever it was. I did and just I did it. Show up here, whatever. All right. So those would be the brothers that you see. Like let's say if you come to a SBPM event, you will, depending on the event, you will see some of them, and then others will be around, and you won't know them until you see them interact with uh, either myself or Jeannie or one of the other brothers that's in charge. So that's a it's a certain psychology with being a foot soldier. It's a certain psychological archetype, right? Next is the brothers that Baruti calls Asafos. And for this, I'm talking about brothers that are like the hyper aggressive, gun loving, physical training, like that. That's them all day long. Massive gun collection. All they do, I'm not all they do, but I mean, they work out every day or they shoot guns every day or they will study in between working out and shooting guns. You know what I'm saying? These are like, you find a lot of brothers in the South like this, just love guns, love working out, love physical contact, whether they boxing, MMA, things like that. So the rough, tumble, hyper masculine, hardcore brothers, right? Those are Asafos. And usually you'll see these brothers because they kind of like to be seen. And if you like that type of dude, I mean, it's kind of hard to miss them because they work out all the time. Usually it's some big dudes. You just like, wow, that's a big dude. That's the Asafos. You know what I'm saying? And you can't have no movement without these brothers, you know. And in a lot of ways, his brothers are a lot of fun, you know. I don't know if they're fun for sisters, but for brothers to be around them, they're a lot of fun. Um, then I talked about this before. The RBG dudes, the street dudes with knowledge, the 5%ers, they fall under this, even though they're not RBG. Um, that generally any street brother that has come into the movement and he's brought the street with him. If you're like a suburban sister, something like that, this ain't the dude you want. But if you a street sister and you want somebody that's kind of on your level, that's not really gonna press you out about certain habits that you may have, like you still smoke herb or whatever, RBG dude, that's your dude all day. Y'all on the same level. Y'all getting, listen to hip hop and Dr. Khaled back to back. RBG dude. Street dude with knowledge. Um Next is the spokesperson slash conscious celebrity. Y'all know this dude because they all over the internet. Sometimes the spokesperson don't speak for nobody but herself, but spokesperson slash conscious celebrity. In this era, they mastered social media. They mastered making clips of themselves. They mastered the sound bite. They've mastered being up at situations wherever there's situations involving black people. They will speak on anything. They have an opinion and seemingly knowledge of everything. If you notice me, you notice there's certain things I don't actually talk about. They love the camera and the spotlight, and with that comes some egotism. Now, the thing about the spokesperson is, they're popular because they're the spokesperson. Everybody sees them. They see them in the spotlight. Usually, it's a good-looking brother. Usually well dressed. I say usually now, not all the time, because they understand the camera. And they understand image. And so if you're gonna be that person and you're gonna bring that light to yourself, there's an image that you're going to project based on whatever your ideology is. Lord Bell said, "Man, I'm not even going to mention that dude." But I mean, he did master image though. You know, the whole four chocolate wives thing. That was an image in itself, as we see. Yeah, but yeah, he's a perfect example. Unfortunately, we got too many of them. It's a lot of people we could go through. But yeah, he's a perfect example. I wasn't even thinking about him. Um, but yeah, that's the spokesperson. Y'all know him. Y'all see him. We see him every day on various social media. Um, Next is the organizer. And the organizer can at times be a spokesperson, but a lot of times the organizer is while they while they have to be a public face to an organization. An organizer is by definition part of an organization and is doing work within that organization. And the organizers are focused, dedicated. There's a certain amount of discipline, and really, an organizer is like half foot soldier, half spokesperson. That's just like the best way I can describe it. If you meld those two things into one, you either get the best parts of both, and occasionally, depending on the organization, you might get the worst parts of both. But that's a brother that some sisters may gravitate to because they see them just enough in the spotlight, and also you'll see them many times in a situation where they are in control and they are regulating things and making sure things work, and you can see them work. And sometimes sisters will see that and gravitate towards that because they'll see that person um, giving orders to other strong men. So that is another psychological archetype, and they think differently from the outright spokesperson and differently from the RBG dude and so forth and so on, and even differently from the Asafo. And there are some brothers who they any brother that's in an organization and any brother that's conscious, there are aspects of all of these within them normally, but there's a dominant trait usually amongst them, right? And last, the leader. It goes without saying, you know, you think of leaders, you think of your Malcolms, you think of your Martins, you think of your Garveys, you think of your Collards. Now, interestingly, with Collard actually has been he's been most of these people. Collard was a foot soldier before he was known, definitely an Asafo, um, and he was the national spokesperson and an organizer, and finally a leader. So if you look at Dr. Collard's life, he has Um, he's been in all of these positions, though I would say his archetype is really an Asafo. He was an Asafo that just fit into these other job descriptions. Um, brother said, yeah, the good doctor, yeah, the good doctor, good doctor, excellent spokesperson. Um, but yeah, so leaders have number one is going to be is very difficult, generally speaking, to get to a leader of an organization. Usually, but not all the time, they already have a complement. If they do not, you'll be vetted heavily if the organization is worth anything. Um, and it being, as I spoke about earlier, being the wife or the woman of a leader means that you become the representative of the entire organization in a way. And so that's a heavy burden and a hard task that everybody's not ready for. And different sisters will gravitate to the different personality types that I've laid out, and different sisters will fit in with the different personality types. Like I said, if you're um if you're a street sister, the chances of you and let's say the organizer getting along are small. You're gonna be wanting to do stuff, be out, have fun, and he's thinking about the next event, the next program, the next whatever it is, and y'all gonna have conflict. Or if you one of those quiet, classy sisters, you and the RBG dude, you might be attracted to him, but that thing is going to be difficult because you're gonna always be questioning, hey, are you supposed to be doing that? Are you supposed to be doing this? And yeah, it's not gonna work. So those are the archetypes. So for the sisters that are remaining, are there any actual questions that y'all have or topics that y'all want me to get into before I close this out? Um, because I didn't want to go past 2 hour, 2.5 hours. I see we're creeping up on 2 hours now. Hopefully, sisters found this of value and will take a look at it later on, think about it, and apply it when you're out and about or, you know, contacting people by social media. Because I guess it depends on where you are now. If you can even go out and about, that's a whole thing. Let me see. Did I miss anything at any other comments? Sister Poetry was like, truth, my model stays equally yoked and equally woke. Yeah. Although I hate the woke term. I just sister said this was very informative things I never would have thought about. Thank you, sister. I mean, I felt like I was in a unique position to give sisters some guidance and information and some things to think about that they wouldn't normally, that virtually no one else would talk about. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. That's the only reason I did it. And then the sister that gave me the idea, I don't even think I see her in the chat. Weirdly enough, you know how y'all are. She'll DM me tomorrow and be like, I forgot. You gave me the idea for the show. How you forget? Um, so if there is, sister says she appreciated quickly, and I almost forgot. Do have some announcements while I wait for y'all. Sister said, I appreciate this because I don't like to be blindsided. No one likes to be blindsided. Um, while I try to find this information on my phone. And you know what? Let me talk about something real quick because I didn't really talk about this aspect of it. But there's another thing that sisters will have to think about too is when you're dealing with brothers who brothers in the conscious community, especially brothers that are strong and outspoken. Excuse me. You're gonna have to understand that there is a chance that they will be economically impacted by the positions and stances that they take. I don't think that some sisters think about. You know, I mean, now we're in an age where people are checking your social media and all these types of things. Um, embrace. Brother Jeannie is a perfect example. Sister said, "Yes, brother. Thank you for talking about this coming from a brother's perspective." All right, thank you, sister. Brother Jeannie is a perfect example. He had a government job making uh, good money, and because eventually, for whatever reason, they found out who he was and what he was doing. You know, that job went by the wayside. So there are real consequences for being in this movement, and sisters have to understand that if you are fortunate enough to meet, and this is a rare thing, just because the nature, just like what I said, the nature of a brother being outspoken, unless they mastered the art of spooking. If you read the book, The Spook Was Set by the Door, that's what I mean by spooking. Unless they mastered the art of spooking, it's very rare that the high value man and the conscious man come in one package in one person. And I mean high value from an economic standpoint, not from a character standpoint and things like that. So that's something that sisters are going to have to understand, right? It's not a lot of conscious six-figure brothers running around. There are some. I I I've known some, but I've also known a handful of brothers who have lost their jobs because of the stance they're taking, especially now in an environment where everything is pro LGBT and you can't let nothing slip out your mouth speaking against that. That's a quick way to the unemployment line. So I just wanted to, mention that real quick. But I will say that most brothers who, especially if they're in an organization, they're going to be productive 9 times out of 10. Sister said, that's so true. It's why I'm putting some things in place just in case something happens so that we won't be hindered financially. You see, that means you're forward thinking. You understand what you're signing up for. Because trust me, if it paid to be pro-black, oh, everybody be pro-black. Everybody. I mean, the whole Nick Cannon thing is a perfect example. And I didn't even hear the interview. I didn't have to hear it. I just knew that if he was going to say something against those people, the quote unquote chosen people, oh yeah, I knew it was going to be backlash. So that's one of those things that if you're gonna say it, you got to stand on it because they're gonna come for you anyway. And so there's no need to back up. That's my whole thing with it. There's no need to back up. They're going to try to destroy you economically once you say it. So you might as well just stand on your square and just, hey, it is what it is. I mean, I don't know what his I don't know anything about his how well off he is economically or things like that. But I know those people don't play fair. They could have threatened his life, his children, anything, because that's how they roll. But at the same time, you have to understand that before you step in that arena. I know people think this conscious stuff and is something to play with, but the people on the other side aren't playing because they fear the next Malcolm, Nat Turner, Robert F. Williams, Boukman Dadi. Europeans feel that. They understand that, oh, if you oppress a people, those people are going to keep manifesting people who will fight the oppression. So they're always on the lookout for those people. Baba Kamal Cambone, he talked about that. He said they're always looking out for the person with the one idea. So just, if you're familiar with Baba Kamal Cambone, you've heard that speech. If not, you can Google him. Somebody had it on YouTube under under Kamal Cambone's most excellent speech, which is what I thought. It's what I thought it was. Thought it was excellent. How when I saw it back in, it's so funny when I saw it back in the day because it was around the time of Hurricane Katrina. If I can say that. Um, I was like, man, I ain't know nobody was still talking strong like that because this was after Dr. Khaled had made his transition. Um, so yeah, there was a void there, but Barbara helped at least let me know that somebody was still standing strong. So, let me make this announcement real quick. The sixth annual Straight Black Pride movement is coming up. Yeah, we're in October now, so it's coming up in 3 weeks to the day, and starts at 2 p.m. and someone I know real well will be giving a presentation on Saturday, August 22nd at 2 p.m. And then Sunday, August 23rd at noon, we're going to be having the SBPM free cookout in the park. And so the first day's event will be at Everlasting Life, 9185 Central Avenue, Capitol Heights, Maryland, 20743. And the cookout will be at 3600 F Street and Minnesota Avenue, Southeast, Washington, D.C., 20019. And the event is free for both days if you're in the DMV area. I will check. I believe I believe we're having registration, but I will check and let y'all know if we do, because we had no, they have it. DMV area has a lot of restrictions on how many people can have at venues and wearing masks. Or there's all types of stuff going on here. Even though we have far less reported cases of what than other people. So, I mean, it is what it is. So if you're traveling, just know. I think a couple of sisters have contacted me and asked me about travel and things like that. If you follow me on Instagram at dc.radical, the number one, you have any questions and you plan to come, I will answer those questions. And if their sisters have any more questions, let me know now. I will give you 1 minute for any other questions. If time passes without any more questions, then I will close it out. One thing I will say, a book I recommend for us as African people is Complementarity: Thoughts for African Warrior Couples by Baba Walimu K. Bomani Baruti. And of course, as I said, I recommend the ISIS Papers, The Keys to the Colors by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. Those are two must haves and must reads. And since there don't appear to be any questions, with that, I am going to say a BB for Hodier and straight black pride.